AfterDeath by Emo Da'ako. Chapter 3. Live or die. Death was lost. He didn't know what to do. Gino had passed out nearly a minute ago, and they still hadn't moved from their spot. They hadn't left the save screen to get any help. Why? Because they can't. Death didn't know what would happen to Gino's fragile body if he had left the save screen. For all he knew, Gino was alive only because of the time was frozen here. And not only that, if death brought Gino somewhere else, or anywhere else, in fact, everyone will know. No one was supposed to know, especially Asgore. Death doesn't even want to think about what would happen if Asgore finds out that he'd been keeping Gino alive for his own selfish reasons. Leaving the save screen is risking everything. One mistake could cost Gino's life. But maybe, just maybe, they could just stay here, in the save screen. It's safe here, right? Gino was hidden. Time was frozen, which means no one would die here, right? Death desperately tried to calm his frantically beating soul, taking deep and slow breaths. He needed to think. Think of a solution to the current problem. But what exactly is the problem? What caused this? How did Gino end up like this? Bleeding profusely, barely breathing, unconscious, and particularly burning up with fever, Death could feel Gino's soul pulsing dangerously slow. As soon as Death realized that, he quickly summoned Gino's soul after mentally kicking himself for his stupidity. The small blue shard of a soul materialized over Gino's chest. Death had expected that the soul would be in paler condition, but the thoughts were drowned as soon as he saw the tiny bits of it continuously but slowly breaking apart into smaller pieces until it was nothing. Death felt his world falling apart. How could this happen? Gino's soul was slowly disintegrating. He's dying. What happened? Death uselessly demanded to himself. Forgetting about everything else, Death carried Gino bridal style very carefully and hurriedly ripped a portal through his own universe. It doesn't matter anymore if Asgore found out, or if anybody found out. It doesn't matter if he will be punished for keeping Gino alive. In fact, he'll gladly accept the punishment just as long as Gino stays by his side. But none of those matter right now. It's not about who's right or wrong anymore. It's a race against time, and Gino's life is on the line. Death landed in front of Life's house. He found her in her front garden, back turned on him, and immediately called for help. Meanwhile and elsewhere, Asgore perked up. He felt it. The soul that was supposed to be dead long ago. His thoughts were cut off when Undyne, captain of the royal guards, burst into the throne room to report the presence of the said overdue soul. But she was silenced and instead was ordered to assemble a team in an instant. She immediately obeyed and ran out of the room. Asgore summoned his weapon before tensely walking out of the throne room as well, his face serious and his eyes cold. Back with Death. Tori, help, please. Death pleaded as his voice trembling and sounded panicked. Life perked up with an annoyed face before sighing. What do you want now, Death? She said as she turned around, only to find Death tearing up with a heavily injured skeleton in his arms. She immediately switched to her mother mode. forgetting about her annoyance with Death, and quickly went to check on the unconscious skeleton in Death's arms. "Oh dear!" she gasped as soon as she distinguished the wound from all the blood.
"Tori, please, you have to do something,"
Death desperately pleaded. Life quickly ushered them inside her house and straight to the guest room. Death gently placed Gino on the bed and anxiously waited for any order from Life. Life went to the other side of the bed and immediately summoned Gino's soul. She gasped in horror at seeing its awful condition. At first, she thought about how cruel Death was for letting a soul suffer for who knows how long. But looking at Reaper right now, tears streaming down his face and a terrified expression, Life couldn't bring herself to blame him. Instead, she asked, "What happened?" quietly.
I don't know. I just found him like this. Please, Tori, you gotta do something."
Death pleaded as he held Gino's limp hand.
"Please, I'll do anything. Just help him."
Death continued as tears rolled down his face. Life felt her own tears gather in her eyes at the mere sight of the broken Death, weeping and pleading helplessly. Suddenly guilt began growing inside her. She admitted that she had treated Death like some sort of mistake, an abomination, someone who doesn't care, no soul, aren't capable of feeling anything and wasn't supposed to exist. But as Life continued to stare at Death, her guilt intensified. She felt ashamed of her actions. She couldn't imagine how much her words must have hurt him. She felt awful for
"Tori!"
Life snapped out of her thoughts when she felt someone shaking her by the arms. She realized that she had spaced out. She looked down to find Death beside her with a desperate look on his face.
"Please. I'll do anything."
Death pleaded, and it broke Life's heart to see him like this. Focusing on the task at hand with determination in her eyes, she carefully examined Gino's soul that was floating over her paws the whole time. It still continued to disintegrate slowly and pulsing very softly, but the glow never dims. In fact, it was glowing bright blue. Odd, she thought. The soul was dying, but at the same time is not? How could this be? Is he dead and alive at the same time? How is that even possible? As Life examined the soul, Death waited anxiously beside her, fiddling with his fingers and unconsciously slightly hyperventilating. Inwardly, he was desperately begging Life to hurry up. Suddenly, her gaze shifted to Death, which made him jump a little in surprise. Then she gently placed the soul back over Gino's chest. The soul was absorbed back inside the skeleton's body. Then Life knelt in front of Death, so that they were the same height, and placed her paws over Death's shoulders. Death was trembling as more tears formed on the brim of his eye sockets. He knows this gesture. "Death, I need you to calm down for a moment," Life said in her motherly tone. Instead of doing what he was being told, Death blurted out, "How is he? Can you do something to save him?" Death's tone was frantic and desperate at the same time. "Death, just calm down. Breathe. I need to ask you something," Life said softly in her motherly tone, but with a little urgency. Death did as he was told, breathed deeply to calm himself, even though inside he was panicking for Gino's life. But he did tell Life that he'd do anything in return for helping Gino. Life waited patiently for Death to calm down. His breathing slowed down to a normal pace as his expression became slightly more relaxed. He wiped the tears on his face with his sleeves. Death, I'm very confused right now. The soul, he is... I don't even know where to start. He's not normal. He's dead but alive at the same time. Life began, uncertain, as Death listened impatiently but didn't dare interrupt. I don't even know how it is possible. But that matter aside, what I need to know is, do you really want to heal him? Life said in a sad tone.
What kind of question is that? Of course I do. I wouldn't bring him here if I don't.
Death exclaimed in slight frustration. What I mean is that his soul is nearly gone, and he is glitching so badly. If I heal him, he will remain in his fragile state. Do not misunderstand. His injuries will heal, but his immune system will be incredibly weak due to his soul. Life explained as gently as she could.
Where are you getting at with this?
Death was utterly confused and anxious. He's suffering. If you let him live like this, you'll just prolong his suffering. I think it's better if you let him die. Life was cut off abruptly.
No! I will not let him die. I will never reap his soul.
Death refused as he tried to shove Life's paws off his shoulders, but Life held him firmer. Death, listen to me. If he dies...
No! Gino will not die!
Death had tears streaming down his face again, sobbing quietly. Listen. If Gino dies, I can reincarnate him with a new, healthy body. No glitches, no suffering, with all his memories with him. But first he needs to die, Life explained softly, hoping for Death to understand that she wants to help. But she was taken aback when Death's response.
No.
What? But Death, would you rather let him suffer?
No, Tori. You don't understand.
Death grabbed her shoulders and slightly shook her.
If Gino dies, he'll cease to exist.
Life was utterly confused. What?
Gino's soul is a piece of another Sans' soul. He's a glitch. If he dies, his soul will merge back with that another Sans, and Gino's existence and memories will be gone.
Death explained to her, tears consistently flowing down his face. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to lose Gino, and he didn't want to, and right now, Gino is dying. If Life won't do anything to help him, it's all over. It's all over. The thought lingers in Death's mind as his knees weakened and he sat on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Until the door slammed open, revealing Asgore with his weapon in plain sight, Papyrus and Undyne behind him with their scythes.
Hand over the dying soul,
Asgore ordered coldly. Death summoned his own scythe as he stepped forward and blocked Asgore's path.
Over my dead body,
Reaper said. His tone was colder, deeper, and threatening. Reaper would never. It's either they both live or they both die.